You can't blame the mother for that. You just can't. We can sit here all day and say, well, everybody had their guard up, but you let that kid take your baby away from you. And of course we think that's crazy now. Why would you ever do that? That's wrong. But we also, we also are a people who think, well, this will never happen to me. It only happens to other people. It's evil. No matter what or where it happens or who's doing it, it is evil, and there's no argument where you're gonna see me agreeing that it is the person's fault. That irritates me. That is literally one of my pet peeves. And that probably started years ago when, women and girls were being raped and they were being blamed because they were wearing a short skirt and maybe no bra or something. I don't care if you're walking around naked outside. No one has the right to rape you or murder you or kill you. I don't care if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. We are adults. Most of us are adults who are getting murdered, right? And there are a lot of children who get murdered, but as well as we know. But it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. I should be able to walk or go anywhere in this world I want to go and have the right not to be murdered. And maybe you think that that's me being naive or me thinking, that the world is just very black and white. I do know that there are ways that you protect yourself. That I shouldn't be out walking at 3:00 in the morning in a bad part of town. But does that mean that I deserve to be molested in some way? Of course not. It doesn't. So I have issues when I read these articles where the victims' families are blamed. Some of the older serial killers, the stories related to them, you will see where like the mother or father or both let the child ride their bicycle 2 blocks to the little grocery store to pick up a few things because they thought they were old enough to do it on their own. And the kid was so excited because they were going to do it on their own. And then they never came back. We should live somewhere safe enough to where your child should be able to go anywhere on a bike alone and not be abducted and killed. But, we live in a world that's flat out evil. I mean, you can sit here and argue about it all day long, but I still don't think I don't think the family of the victim should ever be blamed. Ever. Unless, of course, they were in on it. That's different. Trying to cover my bases here because, there are some people out there who just really love to nitpick. Of course, if their family members are involved or they knew about a person and they knowingly let their child or family member be around them and they knew that they were a murderer, maybe different. You might be able to argue that one a little bit better. But generally speaking, we live in the United States. We should be able to be pretty free with what we do. So, there's my soapbox for the day. All right, here's another one on the list. His name is Eric Smith. And he was considered to be a funny and loving boy when he was younger, but that changed when he was around 13 years old. He killed a 4-year-old boy, Derek Roby, by luring him into the woods, and then he hit him with a rock. And then he sodomized him with a tree limb. The dead body of Derek was found within hours as Eric confessed the crime, and he was charged with second-degree murder and sent to the New York State's medium security prison. Now, you can find pictures of, he's one of the most famous pictures you'll see of young children who have been convicted of murder. He's a little red-headed boy with big glasses on, and the picture it's got like he's sitting in a courtroom, he's got on a white t-shirt, again, those big glasses, and he just looks like I'm not going to say innocent. He just looks like a normal kid. He looks like, the boy next door. He doesn't look like he would be anybody, or even the size of anybody who would be able to do this. But he is another one that's on this serial killer list, and he's not a serial killer. He only has one victim that's proven, and it was a 4-year-old. So he's on this serial killer list. And yes, he killed by strangulation, and then he also dropped a pair of large rocks on the boy's head. This was in New York. And he was sentenced to the maximum term then available for juvenile murders, which was a minimum of 9 years to life in prison. And that was in 1994. We know that Smith was a loner and was often tormented by bullies for his protruding, low-set ears, thick glasses, red hair, and freckles. And if you look up that picture, you'll see his ears they're a little big, and the tops of them kind of bend down. I absolutely understand how horrible it would make you feel if you were being bullied for those type of things. And, keep in mind, we see this idea or these experiences with bullies in almost every serial killer's past. It was national headlines. It was because he was one of the first. It was just a horrific murder. Smith attracted Roby to a remote location in a park. He strangled him, dropped the rocks on his head, undressed his body, and then sodomized him with a tree limb. The cause of death was determined to be blunt trauma to the head with contributing asphyxia. 2 days after Roby's funeral, Smith admitted to Roby's killing. In 1994, Smith was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to a maximum term, of course, which was a minimum of 9 years to life. While in jail, he wrote an apology letter to Roby's family, and he read it on public television. It said, "I know my actions have caused a terrible loss in the Roby family, and for that, I am truly sorry. I've tried to think as much as possible about what Derek will never experience. His 16th birthday, Christmas, anytime, owning his own house, graduating, going to college, getting married, his first child. If I could go back in time, I would switch places with Derek and endure all the pain I've caused him. If it meant that he would go on living, I'd switch places, but I can't." At the end of his statement, Smith states that he cannot bear the thought of walls, razor wire, and steel metal bars for the rest of his life. He has since been denied parole 5 times, and most recently, in April of 2010, this article is actually old. He was actually eligible in April of 2012, but I do not think that he has been. I don't think he ever will be. But stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. So this article, there's another article. This was in 2004. He was up for, said that he was up for probation, set it for parole, and the Roby family struggled to keep its fear in check. The hearing was held at Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, which is a maximum security prison. Some people have said we need to forgive, but I can't yet, says Dale Roby, who's condemned to an agonizing wait since the parole hearing is closed to the public. The summer Derek was murdered in 1993. He was coming up fast on his 5th birthday, and that's the first time that correspondent Dan Rather met the Robys. Derek was all boy all the time. He was also the unofficial mayor of Savona, a tiny village in western New York with a population of 970. He sat on the corner on his bike and waved to cars that went by, recalls his mother, Doreen. Everybody remembers him doing that. Smith grew up just across town and liked to spend time with his grandparents, Red and Edie Wilson. He'd always come in and give us hugs and kisses, recalls Red. He liked being a clown. He definitely wanted to be paid attention to. But Smith's bright hair and freckles made him a target at school for years, and as a teenager, he was seen pedaling around town for hours on end, alone. During the summer of '93, Smith attended a recreation program held a block from the Roby home, and Derek also attended the program. On August 2nd, Derek was ready to head out of the program, but his mother wasn't ready to take him. Normally, I would walk him to the end of the driveway, but Dalton that morning was very fussy, recalls Doreen Roby. Derek says, "It's okay, Mom, I'll go by myself." He gave me a kiss, and I said, "I love you," and he says, "I love you, Mom," and he went hopping off the sidewalk. He had only a block to go and no streets to cross. The park was on a dead-end street, and it was the first time I've ever let him go anywhere alone. A short time later, as storm clouds moved in, Doreen says she felt something close to panic. I swear that was the moment he died. I think it was him letting us know. His father added that Derek was very close to us, and if there was any way he could have told us he was leaving, he would have tried. What Doreen felt but didn't know yet was that 5 minutes after she kissed Derek goodbye, he was dead. The most disturbing details of the crime, however, were never made public. But now, a decade later, with the fear that their son's killer could be set free, the Roby family wants the whole story to be told. "People need to know what this kid did," said Doreen Roby. On August the 2nd, his body was found in a small patch of woods halfway between the park where he was headed and his home. He chose to end Derek Roby's life, and he chose to do it in a way that was much more than just killing. And Tooney is who said that. He's one of the police officers that was on the case. He vividly remembers the crime scene and the brutality of the murder. Evidence showed that Derek was lured from the sidewalk and strangled, but at the time, the killer's identity was unknown. He discovered and dug up one very large rock and one smaller rock, and he battered Derek with these rocks. He went into Derek's lunch bag and he smashed a banana and took Derek's Kool-Aid, and he actually poured that Kool-Aid into the hole that had been made by the large rocks in his skull. And then he sodomized Derek with a small stick that he found. According to Wood, the killer arranged Derek's body. The left sneaker had been removed and was lying near Derek's right hand, and his right sneaker had been removed and was lying near his left hand. It almost looked like the body had been posed in that position. Eric continued to deal with Derek's body because he wanted to, because he chose to, and most frighteningly, because he enjoyed it. The word enjoy would come up again and again in the course of the investigation. The first time was 4 days after the murder, when Smith walked into the police command center to see if he could be of help solving the crime. He totally enjoyed it. Didn't want it to end, says investigator John Hibish, who repeatedly talked with Smith and had no idea the killer was sitting right in front of him. "He's looking right at me. He's very upbeat, very happy. He likes the fact that he's being talked to." At first, Smith denied seeing Derek, but then he abruptly changed the story. He says, "Right across the street from the open field, and that's when I saw Derek. And when he said that, he knocked me off the chair," recalls Hibish. He's putting him right on top of the crime scene. I mean, you've got to walk across an open field, and you're at the scene where the murder was. When Smith was asked what Derek was wearing, Smith was able to describe Derek's clothing and the fact that he had a lunch bag in his hand. He said it was kind of cool, really. He was bouncing around again. He's happy, and he's telling us something. Hibish says Smith started getting emotional when investigators asked Smith to tell them where he had last seen Derek. His voice started cracking. He put his head down. He brings up his fists, and his fists were vibrating a little, and he goes, "You think I killed him, don't you?" Smith then asked to take a break, and his father brought him a glass of Kool-Aid. When Hibish continues the discussion, he says that Smith grabs the red Kool-Aid and just throws it on the ground. "Now we all know that Derek, the boy who was killed, had red Kool-Aid spilled all over him," says Hibish. "But I'm thinking this kid had seen something that's very traumatic, and there's a block in there, and I can't get around it." The next day, investigators asked Smith to get his bike and show them where he was when he saw Roby. Wood was there and said that Smith was very calm. I would have to say that he enjoyed it. He was having a good time. But Smith's grandfather, Red Wilson,